All right, let's get into it. Today, we are talking about one of the most powerful ideas in all of programming, control statements. This is how we go from writing a simple to-do list for our computer to actually giving our code, well, a brain. It's how we teach it to think, to react, and to make decisions all on its own. I mean, think about it for a second. Your GPS isn't just reading off some pre-written script. It's alive. It's constantly checking where you are, looking at traffic, and figuring out the absolute best way to get you where you're going. How does it do that? The secret sauce is exactly what we're breaking down today. It's all about control statements. So here's our game plan. First, we'll talk about why we even need to control our code in the first place. Then we'll dive into the tools for making choices. After that, we'll look at how to make our code do things again and again. And finally, we'll pull it all together so you know exactly which tool to grab for any problem. You know, by default, a computer program is kind of like a robot that's super obedient but not very bright. It starts at line 1, goes to line 2, then 3, and just keeps going, top to bottom, no questions asked. But for solving real problems, that's just not going to cut it. We need to be the directors of that flow. Yeah, that's really the heart of the problem, right? A basic script is just a recipe. Follow the steps and you'll always get the exact same cake. But what if your friend has a nut allergy? Or what if you suddenly need to bake 10 cakes instead of 1? The basic recipe falls apart. We need to give our code the ability to adapt, to choose a different path, or to repeat a step over and over. So, how do we give our code that awesome power to choose? Well, the first set of tools in our toolbox are called selection statements, and they do pretty much what it sounds like. They look at a situation, they evaluate it, and they select the right path for the program to take. The best way to think about a selection statement is as a fork in the road. Your code is walking along and it hits this fork. At the fork, there's a question. We call it a condition. If the answer to that question is true, the code goes down one path. If the answer is false, it goes down the other. That simple true or false decision is the bedrock of all complex programming. And the most fundamental, the most common, the absolute bedrock of all decision-making in C++ and really any programming language is the if statement. It's as simple as it sounds. If this thing is true, then do that thing. And the syntax is super clean. You've got the keyword if, and then inside these parentheses, you put your condition. That condition has to boil down to a simple true or false. If it's true, wham, the code inside the curly braces gets executed. If it's false, the program just gracefully skips right over it and continues on its way. But, life isn't always about do this or do nothing. Sometimes it's an either-or kind of deal. And that's where else comes into play. It gives you the other side of the coin. If the user is logged in, show them their dashboard. Else, show them the login page. It guarantees one of those two things is going to happen. Okay, so what if you have like 5 different options? You could chain a bunch of if and else if statements together, but that can get pretty messy to read. This is where the switch statement is your best friend. It's designed specifically for checking one single variable against a nice clean list of possible values. And it's not just about looks. It can actually be faster because the compiler can optimize it. Just remember the golden rule of switch. Use a break after each case, or your code will just fall through to the next one. And another really cool thing about switch is how flexible it is. You're not just stuck with numbers. You can use it to check booleans, enumerations, which are like custom-named values, characters, and even strings. That makes it an incredibly powerful tool for handling all sorts of menus or state changes in your code. All right, our code has a brain. It can make choices. Now, let's give it some muscle. Let's give it the power of automation. We're going to talk about doing things over and over and over again without having to copy and paste our code 1,000 times. Let's talk about loops. Iteration statements, or as everyone calls them, loops, are the absolute workhorses of programming. They take on all the boring, repetitive tasks, and just like an if statement, they run based on a condition. But here's the magic. Instead of running once, they keep executing that block of code again and again as long as their condition stays true. So, what kind of loops do we have? Well, the two big ones are for and while, and knowing when to use which is crucial. It's actually pretty simple. Use a for loop when you know exactly how many times you need to do something, like process these 50 images. The while loop is for when you don't know. It's for when you want to say, keep doing this while some condition is true, like keep the game running while the player is still alive. And then there's the quirky cousin of the while loop, the do while loop. It has one very important, unique feature. It checks its condition at the end of the loop, not the beginning. So what does that mean? It means the code inside a do-while loop is absolutely 100% guaranteed to run at least one time. Perfect for something like showing a menu, right? You have to show it once before you can ask for a choice. Oh, and a quick but super important warning for all loops. Make sure your condition can eventually become false. Otherwise, you've just created an infinite loop and that will crash your program. And just so you can see them all side by side, here's the basic syntax. The for loop is so neat and tidy. It bundles the setup, the condition, and the update all in one line. The while loop is simpler, just the condition. And you can see that do while has its while condition way down at the end. So we have this whole toolbox now, right? We've got if, switch, for, while, do while. So the million-dollar question for every developer is, which one do I use? How do I pick the absolute best tool for the job? Let's build a really simple guide for that. This little mental flowchart makes it so much easier. First, ask the big question. Am I making a choice or am I repeating something? If you're making a choice, is it a simple yes/no? That's an if. Is it a list of specific options from one variable? That's a perfect job for switch. If you're repeating, do you know the exact number of times? Use a for loop. If you don't and it's based on a condition, use a while loop. And that final special case, if you need that loop to run at least once, do while is your guy. And really, this is the most important takeaway. Learning control statements isn't about memorizing syntax, it's not a vocabulary test, it's about understanding the very logic of how to solve a problem. These are the building blocks you use to translate a complex idea in your head into a series of steps a computer can follow intelligently. And that's really what it's all about. Now that you have the power to control the flow, to make choices, to repeat actions, you can build almost anything you can imagine, from a video game to a complex data tool. You officially have the fundamental building blocks of problem solving. So the only question left is, what are you going to build first?